Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I'm
Welcome.
Jeremy.
I'm Andy.
And this week we are doing what's become sort of a normal tradition.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I feel like we're getting into routines
We are.
with this podcast.
Kind of just know what we're doing.
Early on, it was a lot of like, let's just want to do this, do that. And now we're again getting some routines where at the end of the month, we just go, hey, we've both seen movies, but we didn't take a whole episode to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take an episode to talk about all these different movies or different trends or anything that's happening in the movie world that we would want to address. So this is April, and April to me, you know, you think of the timeline of movies coming out in a year and what the different parts of the year mean. So like, of course, you know, summer is your big blockbuster time, your family movies, the movies that are supposed to appeal to everybody. Around winter, you know, Christmas time, that's your Oscar bait movies and that sort of things. February, notoriously, like it's like the worst movie month. They call it Dumpuary, just like...
Certainly proved true this year.
Yeah. April to me is like, it's right on the verge of summer.
Yep.
And it's when movie theaters, I feel like, put out movies that they're like, could be, but we're not really confident in
sure,
it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was, like, thinking of it that way, I look at the list of movies, I'm like,
it makes sense.
It lines up with how I feel about these movies. It was all kind of like, they were like close to being really great summery action blockbuster, or you know, just whatever genre it is.
Right.
But maybe like I could see why maybe the studio was like, let's go April rather than our tentpole months.
Yeah.
For these
it makes
projects.
A lot of sense.
Yeah. So what I've got on here is I basically just went through and made a list of the movies that I saw, and I did it sort of release order.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're cool with that, I'll just start throwing out the movies that I saw, and we can discuss them a little bit. So the first one, well, actually these two I think came out on the same weekend, but the first one I'll bring up is Monkey Man, which was Dev Patel's directorial debut. I'm always fascinated by what makes actors when they go like, okay, I need to direct this. I need creative control, like, because I have a vision here, man.
Yeah, so you want to see what it is.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me that Dev Patel was like, the thing I need to do is I need to be a John Wick style awesome action hero.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I've got a vision for how I'm going to kick butt. Yeah. It's like, I love Dev Patel. Like to me, he's one of those guys that's like just so likable on screen. Mm-hmm. And then you see interviews with him and you're like, well, he just seems like an even better guy in person. This movie didn't totally work for me. Yeah. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to love this movie because I love Dev Patel.
Right.
But it wasn't bad. I couldn't walk away loving it. It wasn't John Wick. It wasn't those types of movies. What I will say, though, is I am fascinated by, I don't know if you've seen any of the interviews with him, the behind-the-scenes stories of this movie, I think are more entertaining than the actual movie itself. Yeah. I'd want to watch a whole documentary about just the making of this movie and how it got done. They had a shoestring budget compared to like other action movies. There was a point where they were doing this during COVID. So the people who were making this movie were just basically on an island together with, you know, whatever they had with them, the amount of money they had. They ran out of money at one point. They're just using like their iPhones and GoPros to like catch shots in this movie.
That's wild.
And then it gets done. And of course, their production company is basically like, they didn't want to keep backing it. And that's when Jordan Peele, who is notoriously a producer on not notoriously, well known to be a producer on this, steps in and he helps get the movie pushed across the finish line. But I hear he also did a great job of helping Dev Patel edit this movie and kind of give it a shape. And, you know, Dev Patel was very complimentary of like, he helped me like really find my movie in all of this. So,
I mean, that checks out with, you know, Jordan Peele, who's proven to just be a super gifted, intelligent filmmaker. So. Yeah.
And so that was, of course, another thing that drove me to see this movie is just when you saw from producer Jordan Peele. And you never know with producing, like, because there's levels of producing.
Sometimes it's
like,
misleading.
I'm really involved producing. And then there's like,
I'll sign my name to this.
Like, I remember when Man of Steel came out and they were like, from
Christopher
producer Christopher Nolan, because he made The Dark Knight. And I think it was really like, just his association with DC.
Kind of fell under the same umbrella, but he really had nothing to do with that. But they used that as a ploy, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it was cool to hear that like Jordan Peele actually like, no, he was hands-on in helping this get pushed to the finish line. So what I said on my little individual review of this movie is, even if this movie didn't totally work for me, I felt like Dev Patel came out looking great because I thought it was well directed. Yeah. I thought I was shocked how awesome he pulled off the action. Yeah. But I was watching going like skinny little nice guy Dev Patel. Mm-hmm. The one thing is he is tall. He's a tall guy. Yeah. And like he got, as actors tend to do for these movies, he got in great shape and was muscular, and not really skinny muscular. But I was like, you know what? I buy it. And I'll say this. Few actors have ever had long hair serve them as well as Dev Patel. Like, short hair Dev Patel is like, yep, you're playing the IT nerd. Long hair with a thin beard. Patel,
I buy you as this Fight Club kind of guy.
You look really cool. Yeah. Like the first movie that I saw him like with that look was Lion. Yeah, and he's not a tough guy in that movie, but it's just like I was like, man, Dev Patel is actually like a really handsome guy. Like I've always thought he's kind of a goofy guy. Yeah. And just the long.
It's kind of interesting how sometimes an actor can just do a small change like that, and it's like you're doing today with the hat.
Exactly,
you're just going for a whole new persona today with the hat.
Exactly. I think what's become probably very clear for people who watch our podcast is I'm not a stylish person, and oh my gosh, I've been letting my hair grow out, and it's just becoming increasingly unwieldy. It was a windy day, and I was like, you know what?
We're throwing the hat,
putting a hat on.
There you go.
And that's it. That's
a little behind the scenes for everybody.
But he also just got to witness me taking my first sip of a caffeinated beverage in almost 2 months. So
if it appears that you're very jittery, or if you think you've sped up the speed of the podcast, it's just Jeremy talking really fast because he's caffeinated.
And it's peach Pepsi. Yeah. It's my first time trying it, and I gotta say it's decent. So Pepsi, if you want us to endorse you on the show, just
do it. We got rival beverages today, though.
Oh no! Well, whichever one wants to come in, and
we're making options.
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think you had a chance to see.
I did not see Monkey Man. Nope. So I can't contribute.
Did you have any thoughts just about the movie or?
It wasn't one that I was like, no, I don't want to see that. It just, for as much as we do love movies, sometimes the schedule just doesn't line up, and it's unfortunate. I will definitely give it a shot on streaming. I'm like you. It is fascinating to you can't help but wonder, like, what is it about this material that is making this guy want to go into, from acting to directing? And same as you, like, we've alluded to it on here before. Jordan Peele to me is 3 for 3 with his movies. So that's a name I like. So it's one that I'm interested in. It just, it just didn't align for me to go see it.
Yeah. I will say, like I said, it's small budget. It was a $10 million budget, at least based on what I was able to look up.
What's it up to, 20 or 30 probably?
It's worldwide, it's earned about 30 million. Okay. Which really surprised me because we got domestic is 23 million, international 7 million. I wondered if this was a movie that was going to get a huge boost from international. In India, but you know what? I also don't know. I don't know if it's showing in India yet.
Yeah, I don't know how that all.
I don't get a lot of response on my little individual movie reviews on YouTube, but one of them was a comment on this review from Monkey Man, and someone just asking, "How do I watch this in India?" And I was like, I didn't even respond. I'm like, I don't even know what. Can you not?
I don't know. You tell me.
I figured people would be watching this in India, so I wonder if it's going to get another life.
I hope so.
In India,
you always want original movies like this to succeed. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next movie on my list, I know we've both seen, so I'll be excited to talk about this one, and that's The First Omen.
Yeah.
All right.
We have not spoken a word to each other about this movie.
We have not. So I was thinking about this. Is like I've actually seen more horror movies this year already, I think, than I've seen in several years.
Really proud of you. You're doing a good job.
Yeah. So Late Night with the Devil, of course, which we talked about, which was great. Yeah. Immaculate. The First Omen, and then another one that we'll talk about a little later, which is more horror comedy. But and there's been a couple others that I kind of meant to see and just never got around to. Yeah, I never saw Night Swim, which
I was the same way.
Did well. It was one I wasn't really interested in actually, but then just how well it kind of stayed.
Yeah, kind of just it was money. Like a small hit, and and
then Imaginary, which
I talked so many times about going to see that, and I just never did.
Yeah, so
that kind of shows you though that even though we are big movie fans, sometimes we just don't get to a movie. It's like Monkey Man. I wanted to, and I just didn't. So we try and see as much as we can, but we don't see everything.
So my big note on First Omen is this: I can't believe that this movie and Immaculate came out like a month apart.
It does seem weird
because there is so much overlap.
They're on each other's corners,
for sure. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll say, all right, First Omen is the better movie.
Yeah.
And so it's weird that it came out a month after. And I wonder if that hurt it, that a movie came out that was so similar to it a month before, even if that one wasn't as good.
Yeah, because neither one of them really lit the box office on fire.
No, and I can tell you right now, First Omen had a $30 million budget and has grossed $46 million. So, and you know,
a very small hit.
Exactly. But I'll let you go with this one since I talk so much about Monkey Man. Do you have First Omen?
I loved this movie. I really liked this movie. So I've got a couple little rants here. So number one, it's a prequel, right? Yeah. The longer we do this podcast, the more I feel like I'm a hypocrite sometimes because I will be so quick on here to be like, enough with these stupid prequels.
Well, and not to interrupt you, sorry, but when we did our preview for the year, I asked you, as a horror movie fan, how do you feel about these? There's a couple of them like this First Omen, and you were like, I could care less.
Yeah. So, as usual, I just sound foolish because, it's like you don't even mean to contradict yourself, but when what you say is being recorded, you do, because it turned out it was like, I saw it getting some decent buzz, and then my dad, he's like, hey, you want to go watch this movie? And I'm like, I'm not going to turn my dad down to go watch a movie. And so I went, I was like, you know what? That was a really good movie. And I think, so, okay, I'm going to focus on the movie first, then I'll get into my prequels theory. So, well written. Very well acted, and just it did the things that we talk about where it focused on mood. I would say like mood and atmosphere. It worried about those things so much more than it worried about gore or shock or jump scares. And that's going to win almost 99% of the time. I think, that's going to be a success right there. We're going to tell a good story. We're going to create this atmosphere of dread or like something's wrong here, but then we're going to populate it with characters. Like, I hate it when they do like the something's wrong here movie, but everyone in the movie's an idiot, and you're like, yeah, dude, you should have realized this like an hour and a half ago and gotten out of here. And I thought this one was well written, so you weren't, something's wrong, something's not what it seems, but I never turned on the characters where I was like, well, then get out, dummy. Like, I was into this movie the whole time. I thought the lead actress, Nell Tiger Free?
That is her name. But that's one thing I was going to say. I couldn't believe that was her actual name.
I couldn't either. I thought she was outstanding in this movie.
She was. And I went home and was like, I have never seen this girl before. I was like, what has she been in? And I was shocked to see, like, I had seen her in something.
Yeah.
Because she was in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Looking completely different than she looked in this movie. You could have given me a million guesses.
And
you've seen this girl in something. Yeah. Guess. I would have never gotten that.
I thought she was fantastic for what the role required. I think she just had a good presence. Like, she looked good up on the screen. She was believable. Mm-hmm. She, her scenes were great. She was just great in this movie. I thought she did a phenomenal job. And I thought the younger girl who it was like, oh man, something's wrong with this girl. I thought, in the constraints of what that character was, I thought she did a really good job.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I left this movie and was like, well, I'm an idiot, and most of the things I say on the podcast are wrong. Because I blew this movie off completely. I remember you asking me that. Mm-hmm. And I sit here all the time and talk about, like, stop with these prequels. And here's a prequel that I really enjoyed. And I'll get to why here in a little bit. But I want to hear what you think.
So a couple things. One is, I have to admit, like, again, I don't like horror movies. This preview actually kind of wrote me in. Now, one thing, it had a great preview song.
It did.
And the song was by a band called Fever Ray, who I've never heard of. And the song's called If I Had a Heart. And I actually went and found it I listened to music on Amazon Music and, like,
started listening to it
sometimes. And it's like, it's eerie and it's creepy. Yeah. So people are probably like, why would you just listen to that? But, like, it just has a great sound to it for, like, a preview like this. And the preview had, like, it showed a lot of the great imagery, but it was showing things like it was being played in reverse.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, like they've got like a style and a look here that, like, I'm intrigued by. So I was actually more interested in this one than I normally am in a horror movie just because the preview worked so well. Yeah. Like you were saying about the actress, I think she did a great job, but also equally important is she just had a great look for the part.
She did.
So I was thinking about this, like, I couldn't help but compare and contrast Immaculate with this. As I said, they're so similar. And Sydney Sweeney is an actress who, like, I still have more Sydney Sweeney stock than I have this other girl, Nell Tiger Free.
Right.
But I'm like, when it comes to casting a horror movie lead, Sydney Sweeney, she looked like Sydney Sweeney, and it's just weird putting her in a nun outfit and saying like, go, you're like, and don't be charming, just be like, you're gonna act like a nun, like a sweet nun, and then you're gonna be in a horror situation. Whereas Nail Tiger Free, giving her the dark hair, was great. Which led to some of the great imagery, like when her hair's spread out, she's got a bug crawling on her face. It's like that is like, that was a great horror movie image.
It was.
And then the thing I think they did so well in this movie with her character, as you said, like most of the time it's, don't be dumb, figure it out, get out of there. The background they gave her of like, she used to see scary things, in her mind. She's like, but then they kind of fix me. But now sometimes I don't know if I'm really seeing it.
Yes.
Like kind of helps you get why this character doesn't just freak out and run. Cause she's just being like, this is in my head. This is my head. This is a problem I have. I've got to just get through it.
Sometimes just those little couple lines of dialogue can completely change how you see the movie.
Yeah. So, and I feel like I should say this, like saying a lot of positive things about the movie. This is not gonna be like on my best list.
Same.
Because I will say this, I'm not like this won me over to horror movies. This had a ceiling for me because this is as much as I've liked any horror movie so far. But I still wouldn't go so far to say I love it, because there's still scenes where I'm just like, I don't like the uncomfortableness of this. I don't like the weirdness of this. And that's just me not being a horror movie fan. Right. So I just want to be clear about that. Like, my enthusiasm for this is that it surprised me in a genre I don't like. Right. That I could overcome a lot of the things I didn't like to still overall have a good experience with this movie.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But
I don't anticipate this cracking my top 5 of the year. I think more it was just like, you know what? That was just a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably, I think we allude to this a lot, that expectations have so much at play with how you feel about a movie. And when you go into a movie with very low expectations, it's very easy for that movie to be like a pleasant surprise.
This wasn't, and even it probably goes beyond that for me, because I definitely this was a good movie. It wasn't just like, well, this was better. I thought it was going to be crap, and it wasn't. But no, I think it was a good, well done movie.
Yeah. I will be curious to see what Nell Tiger Free does going forward.
She kind of hooked me, where it's like, I'd be willing to see what she does next.
Yeah.
For sure.
It does crack me up that it feels like a couple of the known actors in the movie, even if I don't know their name, it was like kind of the older guys, the older
people, yeah.
It was like, these guys are always playing creepy characters or in creepy
it's like
movies.
Who you can't trust.
Like when they show up, you're just like, hey, it's,
something's not going to go well here.
Bill Nye was one of them.
He's one of the all-time examples. Don't trust this guy.
Yeah, and then the guy who I didn't know was the priest who's trying to
warn her
out. Yeah, he's got a great
voice.
His voice
was great. Yeah, it's like you should listen to him just because of the way his voice sounds.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think I'll go on a quick side right here, but I won't try to go too long. Like, just to clear up why I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. Like, this I liked. I think what I figured out is I don't mind if a movie, if you want to make a prequel that's putting you back in kind of the overall world. So like this movie, like you think about something like, I was thinking of an example, like, so there's Silence of the Lambs, very famous movie. Then they made that terrible Hannibal Rising. Do you remember? Like, you don't even remember it because it was so forgettable. Yeah. And it's just terrible. And they're taking the character of Hannibal Lecter and they're filling in all the blanks. And he's like, I don't want to have the blanks filled in. Like, what makes Hannibal Lecter scary is like, how could someone get to be this crazy in the unknown? And then they did the thing that just drove me crazy. So like in Silence of the Lambs, there's like the famous scene where they wheel Hannibal Lecter out and he's got like the protective mask on that they put on him. That mask is not, a trait of Hannibal Lecter himself. It's just something they put on. So then in Hannibal Rising, which is him as a teenager, there's a scene where he's like fencing with someone and he wears a similar mask. And you're like, okay, like you guys thought that was so clever because it's like this connection between the two characters. And that's the kind of stuff that just drives me nuts in these prequels. They get so lost in the weeds of trying to be like, wink, like, look how we came up with this clever idea to show you why this character is like this in the original. And this didn't worry about any of that because it's really just putting you back it wasn't about specific characters. It's just more putting you back in this world. And that was just much more effective than them getting so, in love with their own ideas of like, it's like Darth Vader with the Star Wars prequels. Mm-hmm. You got to go step by step. And it's like a lot of wink moments of like, Darth Vader does this. Well, we just showed you why he does that. And this didn't get wrapped up in any of that. This just was so much more interested in the story. And good story, good writing, good acting is going to bridge the gap between the two movies every time better than wink, wink, look what we just did. We're so clever.
Yeah.
So there's kind of the difference in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm really happy with this movie.
Yeah. I will say maybe one thing that would help me with the enjoyment of this is just that I have actually never seen the original Omen. So the fact this is a prequel, even if there was those allusions to it, I wouldn't have caught them.
But and that's also a win for the First Omen, I think, where it just works as a movie. Like, if you're going to, advise anyone that's doing a prequel, make sure that your movie works just as its own movie and not as, essentially becomes part one of two.
Right.
And this succeeded in that very well. You could have seen the Omen, you could have not seen the Omen, and you get what's going on. So a big win for the First Omen, and the actors involved. It's just a really well done movie.
Yeah. All right, my next movie on my list, talked about it a little already, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. It's Wicked Little Letters.
Yeah.
This is a movie that was a huge, pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah.
I kind of put it up there with like The Book of Clarence. We talked about it again. Expectations. Went into both those movies like, I have no idea what I'm getting into.
Don't know what to expect here.
This could go really poorly. And then I watch it and like, I just had so much fun. And they're just similar in the same way of like, you could tell they're just people who are enjoying making the movie.
Yeah.
There's cleverness in the writing. It's made for adults. They're like movies that aren't afraid to have a limited target demographic. They're not trying to be for everyone. They're like, we like this. Some people else, might also like this. Yep. And I don't know. I really dig that type of movie where, even if I don't connect to it, I don't end up being that person. I'll respect the movie. But these happen to both be movies where I'm like, no, I think I am. I'm that type of person. Yeah. I also enjoy this little quirky story that you're telling. And so like, I don't know. I walk out just like, yes, that's what I want, and for a movie to surprise me, that's what I want it to be.
And there's something admirable too, I think, about someone making a movie knowing that it is not going to be a big box office success. Because it feels like maybe there's just a little bit more passion involved, because you have to be passionate to want to make these smaller, quiet, movies that you just know are not going to appeal to a large audience.
Yeah, especially when it's not going to do that, and it's not going to be like Prestige. It's not going to be like, well, nobody's going to see it, but this is going to be my award moment.
Yeah,
it's really just it's for the job, for the enjoyment of making it, and it seems like that's the hardest kind of movie to get made these days.
Absolutely,
because that's what the studio will ask. Well, is this going to make money?
It's going to make money.
Well, is it going to bring us prestige at least with award contention? If it's not doing any of those things, it's like, okay, so what are we doing? We're just making a movie we enjoy.
We're just making a movie,
So anyways, I want to champion Wicked Little Letters. If you get a chance to see it, anybody out there watching, listening, watch Wicked Little Letters. It was just a fun little romp.
Absolutely.
Next movie up, which is a movie that we won't spend a lot of time on because we spent a whole episode on it. I think it's the cream of the crop of April. It's Civil War. And, I just want to talk on it a little bit because now we both we did it such an immediate reaction. We both had a little more time to digest, and just wondering, after sitting on it for a couple of weeks, any new thoughts or additional thoughts on Civil War?
Certainly not for the negative. I mean, the longer I think about that movie, the more, I definitely stand by my stance that I made on the podcast. It is my favorite movie of the year so far. I think it's the best movie of the year that I've seen so far. I stand by that. It seems to have some legs. Like it had a fairly decent holdover on the second week. I think it's up into the $55-60 million range. That might be worldwide, but no, I don't have a lot of new thoughts other than just like I've said about other movies we talked about with Late Night with the Devil, a movie that has stuck with me. In a time where so many movies are just in and out. But no, I stand by what I said. Definitely my favorite movie of the year. And if I think of anything, it's just going back to that scene with Jesse Plemons I mean, I know that's not
Scene
a
of
hot
the
take,
year. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, definitely the scene of the year so far. So, just an achievement. I'm happy for Alex Garland. I'm happy for A24, and I still say Kirsten Dunst was phenomenal in that movie. I know that was not a disagreement between the two of us, but I thought she just did a great job. And yeah.
No, I'm with you. That I kind of expected this because, like I think I said on the podcast, this is what tends to happen with Alex Garland movies. When you sit with them, like they just they age well.
It's
like
aging great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you think about it, just the more you appreciate what it is, and as you get removed, you kind of I would say you appreciate what it isn't. You get over what, like, maybe initially you're like, I kind of expected maybe they lean into this, that was such a weird choice, and you get past you just forget about all that, and you just start appreciating, like, but okay, now that I'm just accepting that's the choice they made,
that's
and I see what they did, and it's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's. I'm so happy with that movie, and what I mean by what it isn't is I'm still so glad he stuck to the decision of small scale, intimate story with these four people on this road trip.
Yeah. And we talked about on our review. I said I'd be fascinated to hear from, like, when did you decide in the writing process to make these people journalists?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just the logical conclusion of I need them to be involved but also separate? And finding out that his father was a political cartoonist and he actually grew up around journalists. Alex Garland did. And I was like, so he actually has like a particular affinity for journalists. And I think so, like, it was a very natural way for him to, like, view this story, is how would a journalist view all of this? Because that's, even though he is not a journalist, he is a writer who grew up around journalists.
Gotcha.
So he, would see it that way. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I also just want to shout out to my friend Scarlett, who listened to our podcast, and then she sent me a great message just telling me she liked the episode and giving her thoughts. Nice. So
yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Did she like the movie? Did she see it?
She did. Yeah.
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 Great.
So, made me feel good to get that feedback. And
absolutely,
and
we love
confirmation
feedback.
That, like, again, we're movie nerds. We're gonna like things we know not everybody are gonna like, and sometimes I'm afraid of, like, the fact that a lot of my friends aren't gonna like a movie like maybe Civil War, because like we talked about it. Most people want just give me something easy. They don't go to a lot of movies. They don't want to have to overthink.
I don't want to sit here and think.
Yeah. And so when I hear people say that they like it, I'm like, good. Like, it's not just
just us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I one last thing. I will be interested to see, because of the April release, if it's remembered at Oscar time.
Yeah.
Not that it certainly doesn't disqualify, obviously, but sometimes it does feel like there's some of that. The November, December prestige months get a lot of the attention, and some of the earlier in the year movies don't. So, and I don't know if this will get Oscar attention at all, but I'll be curious to see.
It might not. There is at least good precedent just from 2 years ago with Everything Everywhere All at Once, another A24 movie that came out early in the year and then kept its momentum, and actually even at the end kind of gained momentum, and then became like a powerhouse at the Oscars. And I would just like to say, I think Civil War is 100 times better than Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's still one of the most mind-blowing things to me, that's a movie that's
overrated.
Yeah. My next movie on here. All right. I know you're going to have another rant coming up, and this might be the movie where I rant.
Please do.
Rebel Moon, Part 2, The Scar Giver.
Can I share a surprise with you?
Yes.
I watched it.
Oh, man. Okay, I cannot wait.
Nope, but please rant.
All right, so I just want to start by saying this. I want to say sorry to Zack Snyder, because I don't have any special affection for his movies, but I do think, like, I see him in interviews and stuff, and he seems like a nice guy and a guy who just, like, I would get along with if we were to hang out.
He just seems like a dude.
He just likes making movies. He's like, this is what I think is fun, and
he just seems like a dude.
But I gotta say this, Zack Snyder, what you thought was fun in this movie really sucks. Yeah. It is one of, like,
it's really bad.
It was grueling to get through, and not even in, like, a fun way. I told you, I said I think we could do a whole episode, a Madam Web style,
almost like a walkthrough,
like, of what the heck is happening here. And all I could think was, is he, like, is he playing a prank on us? Is he setting us up for his Snyder cut? Because they are actually doing that. He's releasing an R-rated cut. And I was like, did he just make the PG-13 one suck so bad so that his new one could come in and be like, look, guys, it's always better when we get what I want?
I don't know.
I don't think that's probably actually the case. But, like, it was so bad. I'm like, for the R-rated one to come out, I would have to hear everybody that I respect in movies say, you don't understand, this is a totally different movie, and it's way better for me to have any interest in it because I never want to watch another minute of this movie series ever again. It was that bad.
Yeah.
It had some of the, like, it literally reminds me of, like, if a 10-year-old was writing this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just taking his favorite things that he's seen from other movies
and throwing them up on the screen.
It has the lamest exposition dumps for the characters when
that was like one of my highest notes.
All of us have to now give our background so that we can know each other when we go into battle. And it's like I don't know how long, 15-minute sequence in the movie of each character getting like a 5-minute, like, this is my backstory, and they're all very similar, and they're all like,
it's bad.
It is so
it's bad.
I'm sitting there going like, I cannot believe
this is the best you could come up with.
It's just, yes, like, oh man, I'm not like, again, we badmouth all the time, like, team of writers, but I'm like, Zack Snyder, put this in front of some other writers and let them look at this and be like, oh dude, we got to do some work here.
Yeah, it's like him, and he wrote it with like one other dude, I think that's right. But yeah,
you're probably right. Yeah. And then for all of that, like, you're like, okay, I know I'm going into a sci-fi space action movie
from Zack Snyder.
I can't be expecting good dialogue or good character development. So what should I expect? I should expect good action. The action was horrible.
It's terrible. So that's my number one thing. Exactly. You just took the words right out of my mouth. You know you're not going to Zack Snyder for razor sharp dialogue and all this stuff. Okay. So then give me some, like 300 is a good example. Mm-hmm. Whether you like that movie or not, it's especially at the time. Now, time maybe hasn't been so kind to it, but I remember in the moment it was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything that looks like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like, okay, maybe at least, no, it's terrible action. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you've seen it because, like, again, sorry people, I'm going to get into some spoilers, but
go for it.
I'm trying to help you out. Don't watch this.
Don't watch this movie, so you don't have to worry about being spoiled.
This climactic battle, which first off, like, everything is so cliche in this movie. Oh, the bad guys who look like Nazis, basically, they're space Nazis.
Yeah.
Is what they are. Coming to this village. Can we just think about their response to protect the village was go recruit some warriors. They come back with like 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you got a general. He's actually kind of helpful. He does a little strategy. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest are like, okay. The one that just was killing me was Nemesis, the Asian lady with the cool swords.
Yep.
So glad you recruited her so that she could get into a sword fight with 3 bad guys.
Yeah.
Sword fight. The thing she does.
Yeah.
She kills 2 of them and dies.
Yeah.
You're fighting against thousands of bad guys with guns. She fights with swords. She couldn't beat 3 of them with her swords. Like, what was the point of her? Why is she even here?
Yeah. Why did we waste our time on this?
Yeah. And the other ones weren't much better. There was so much of, oh, we're in trouble and we're about to die, and oh, something came out of nowhere to save us last second.
They really leaned on that.
And over again.
Yes.
There was a lot of like, these people should be getting shot right away, but we're not going to show you the wide shot of this action and them charging at a bunch of guns, because if you see it, you're going to be like, how are they not getting shot?
Yeah.
So we're going to go real close up so that you never really know what's going on and can't tell that this action makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
So it was just...
It's a fail. Yeah. I mean,
on every level.
Every level. And that's the thing. You watch it, you're like, who is this movie for? Like, if I want to watch something like this, I mean, there's Marvel, there's Star Wars, there's, tons of better stuff. And like, who is this for?
I don't know, but here's the other thing that just is unreal to me. $83 million budget for this movie.
Yeah.
Of all the movies we're going to talk about today, this is going to have the biggest budget.
Yeah. And
of any movies we're talking about.
By far the worst.
And I don't know how Netflix does their analytics to tell if it's a success or not.
I don't either.
The only thing I'd figure is maybe because it's free and just there, enough kids are clicking on this and watching it. But I cannot imagine that this is... I don't think it was, because I think the first one was kind of notoriously not successful for their platform.
Yeah.
And I get why. It was not any better.
Yeah.
But like, as bad as it was, I was like, it'll only get better in the second one. They had too much maybe world building this one. It's just like it's worse. It was more frustrating. There are very few movies that I watch where I'm like, should I just turn this off? I should just turn this off, shouldn't I? But because I'm such a completionist, I'm like, I
well,
can't.
I've come this far.
I've got to just push through.
It's like you get that, like, I'm carrying the flag, like I'm doing this so nobody else has to type of thing. It's so bad. And I don't hate, like, it almost is one of those things where it's like, it's just the thing to do to hate on Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
But I was looking back through his stuff, like his first like 5 movies I really liked. Like, they weren't like my best of, it's like the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Mm-hmm.
Again, here I go sound like a hypocrite, like a remake. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
300 is good. Man of Steel is good.
Yeah, I like Man of Steel.
I like Man of Steel. So what is that, 3 or 4? I mean, maybe not 5, but like, I don't just automatically hate on the guy.
Right.
But man, like, dude, you got to give me something to work with here. Like, I'm not looking to trash you for no reason.
Well, and what does that show? Like, all the things you mentioned were on previous IP.
Yeah.
And I know he likes to consider himself a storyteller who like also creates stories, but maybe the lesson is, Zach, you can't tell stories.
You can't.
You can't write them.
Like, there's no denying he definitely has a visual flair, like, for better or worse. But yeah, man, your stories are brutal, dude. And you can take these, this movie is terrible, one was bad, and then you combine them and you're like, we needed 2 parts of this. Like, this is bad. This is just bad.
It's unbelievable to me, like, some of the actors that he got involved.
Oh, I know.
That's the thing I'll say for part one. Part one, the one redeeming factor was Charlie Hunnam. I thought was actually good in it. And he was killed at the end of part one, so he was in part 2. So it was like the one little redeeming thing I had.
Yeah.
Gone. I cannot believe Anthony Hopkins was involved in this.
What is happening?
Just providing a voice, but still. I'm like, I know Anthony Hopkins he's probably not the like super serious, only intellectual guy that like I perceive him as. He is an actor, and actors all have a certain amount of silliness to them. But when he's handed the script and be like, I need you to narrate what's happening here and read all the ridiculous backstory. I wonder if there's ever a point where he's like, I just picture him in the recording booth just like rolling his eyes and then being like, okay, I'll say it, but it's really dumb.
It's really dumb.
The main actress, Sophia, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. So I'll just say Sophia. All right. I wonder, like, I don't know where her career is going to go. She's always seems to be in action movies. She just has, I don't know what it is about her. She has a look.
Yeah.
This, as far as I know, is kind of like her first star, the center of the poster type. And I'm like, I just don't think it's going to happen for her.
I don't think so either. And it's hard to tell, like, is there something there? And it's just so covered up by all the garbage that is this movie. But I think you're right. I'm going to have to agree with you. It just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this was a bummer. It was like, you watch this and you're like, okay, I would like to show this movie to anyone that's like, well, Marvel's stupid. You don't have to love Marvel, but like, no, this is stupid. Like, Marvel's at least, like, they're doing some good stuff. This is stupid, not Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that something else came along so soon that's going to give Madam Web a run for worst of the year.
Oh, man. I guess that's probably a whole nother debate, but yeah. You know what? I don't know. I don't even know if we should get into that right now. It was really, really bad. Don't watch it.
Yeah.
It's not fun bad either.
No.
Like Madam Web, you can at least have a good chuckle. We had a lot of laughs when we talked about it.
Yeah.
This one, if you walk through this movie, I think by the time we got done, I would be sick of hearing us talk about it, let alone expecting anyone else to listen.
Yeah, it made me angry.
Yeah. It's stupid. It's a really bad movie.
Let's move on to something else a little more positive.
Yeah, let's be a little more positive.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing I want to talk about with this one, because I could tell you like my thoughts on it. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Main thing I want to focus on with this one is, why is this one bombing so bad?
Really bad. What did it open to, like 7 million or something?
8.9, but on a $60 million budget. To this point, it's only made worldwide 13 million.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that bad.
I mean,
like, literally just nobody is going to see this movie.
And I was in there going like, did I expect this one to be, a huge hit? No, but I expect
it to be like a modest hit.
Yeah, like, in my mind, it's like Guy Ritchie is a
He's
filmmaker of some
well-known.
notoriety.
Notoriety, yeah.
Henry Cavill, I think of as a star.
Okay, but it may be time to have the conversation.
That's the conversation, I think. Yeah, exactly. That we might need
poor
to
guy
have.
just cannot catch a break.
Because I'm sitting there going like, yeah, what were his most recent movies? Well, he did Argyle.
Bombed.
This
bombed.
And again, Argyle, I think he wasn't even in it as much as the previews would lead. So it's
but
it was
you were led to believe
it was marketed as Henry Cavill, and because they thought he would be the draw, and then apparently he wasn't.
Yeah.
But
it's like you never hear anyone that's like, man, I hate Henry Cavill.
No,
it's weird. You hear a lot of people loved him in the Mission Impossible movie. They love him like cocking his arm like a gun before he threw that punch. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's not translating into any kind of box office success.
Yeah, I think about the stuff I like him in, like even The Man from U.N.C.L.E., he was really good in that, and that was a movie that didn't have
really
any
connect.
Success.
No,
and so I'm sitting there going like, maybe we just need to. I mean, we probably have to, like, not even, maybe we need to, I guess it's what we're seeing in the evidence. Henry Cavill's not
a box office
draw.
It's too bad.
And I don't understand, like, this goes back to, like, us talking about how it's really hard to predict movies these days.
It's really hard.
It's really hard to predict who the stars are going to be that draw, because I would have guessed Henry Cavill was one of our...
Handsome dude.
Yeah.
Built. He seems like a genuinely nice guy.
Talented
guy. Like... He does good work. He's not embarrassing himself up on the screen at all.
No.
I thought he was great. I thought he was a great Superman.
Yeah.
Like, he just, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You can't keep trying to make excuses. You just have to be like, this dude is not a box office draw.
Yeah. And again, I think it's too bad because I think he's really good in this movie.
Is he? Yeah, I didn't see this one.
I love Henry Cavill when he gets to have more personality.
Yeah.
As much as I like him as Superman, the thing that I would say is he doesn't have a lot of
Superman is not a real exciting character. I just thought he did a great job of bringing the character to life.
And in this one, he gets to be a little more eccentric.
Yeah, the previews definitely lean into that too.
Getting to have the British accent always helps.
Sure.
Just makes someone seem a little more like witty and charming and that sort of thing. So besides Cavill not being the box office draw, and apparently Guy Ritchie not being the box office draw, I was like, is it some other things that maybe are reasons why? Does suffer from bad title? The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It's just sort of a mouthful. It's based on, I guess, what it was actually referred to as by Churchill, because this is based on a true story. Now, how accurate is it to the true story? I don't know, but it is based on a true story. So, but I still think maybe the name was too much. I will say, when I first saw the preview, my immediate thought was it kind of looks like the generic action movie version of Inglourious Bastards.
Yep.
And I wondered if maybe
that was a turn off to people. Yeah.
They were just like, didn't we already see this done well by Tarantino type thing? And I'm going to tell you, the movies have nothing in common.
Right.
Other than people going like, we're going to be to the Nazis, like we're going to be the bad guys to the Nazis.
But even if that is what people thought, that is still an unbelievably low box office.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too bad.
It is.
Maybe Cavill's play is to just be, at least for the foreseeable future, just do some kind of like he did in Mission Impossible Fallout. Mm-hmm. Just don't be front and center. I don't know. It's too bad because I like the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's disappointing. My other note though is Alan Ritchson, who's one of the other stars of this movie.
Yeah.
Most people are going to recognize him from the Reacher show on Amazon Prime. If this were the 80s, he would for sure be an action star.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's like, his star is already rising as it is.
So
like, it's not that I think he's not going to be a movie star, but I'm just saying in the 80s.
He'd have been in like Commando.
Exactly. Yeah. Like he looks the part. The dude is massive.
That dude is huge.
He's got some acting talent.
Yeah.
And I'm just going like, he's going to have a good career, but if he were in the 80s,
he'd be thriving.
Move over. You know, he would have the career that people thought Dolph Lundgren was going to have after Rocky IV.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it.
I'm curious to see what he'll go on to do.
It's too bad. You know, almost never am I rooting against a movie.
Right.
So you really hate to see something like this bomb so bad.
Yeah. And it, I should be clear, like, again, it's not like a great movie. It's not a movie that, like, if it was doing fine, I wouldn't spend too much time on it. I'd just be like, yeah, it was good. It's worth a watch. That's about it. Because it's doing so bad, it's like, oh, I can't believe this is the movie of all the movies that's going to do this bad.
It's really unfortunate.
Yep. All right. The next movie is maybe the movie I'm most excited to talk about because it's Abigail.
Yeah.
And my first note is let Andy rant. Because I know you had some thoughts.
I have some thoughts. Not about the movie, actually. About the marketing of the movie. All right, let's talk. So, trailers are completely out of control.
Yes.
They are essentially just giving away the entire movie. And I honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time like compiling a list. So I don't want to say something that's not accurate. But this may be one of the all-time examples of that trailer just completely. I don't want to say it ruined the movie, because let me just go ahead and say, loved this movie. Had a blast. Radio silence. Keep it up, guys. You're 4 for 4 in mainstream movies that I like. Loved Ready or Not. Liked the last 2 Scream movies. Liked Abigail a lot. Mm-hmm. So kudos to them. And I don't know how involved, I don't know what the connection is between how much say. I know some filmmakers have a complete creative control over their trailers and stuff. If I was them, I would have been furious at the marketing of this movie. Because so what happened is, the trailer just, they spell it out for you. The first act, they're going to kidnap this girl. There's going to be, some quarreling amongst these criminals. That they don't really know. You don't know the exact dynamics, but the trailer made it very clear, like it's a group of criminals that were picked by somebody, mm-hmm. and now they're stuck in this mansion together. That the bars come down and the doors shut, and they're stuck in this mansion together. And the moment, and exactly how this girl reveals to them that she, spoilers by the way, that she is a vampire. Is everything I'm saying accurate?
Accurate.
You also know, because I went back afterwards, because I was stewing about this, and watched the trailer. If you've got a keen eye, it shows you that Catherine Newton becomes a vampire.
Yep, I noticed that in the preview, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it literally spells this movie out. So when you're watching it, what the beats are. But then you watch the actual movie, and you go, man, you know what? Radio silence took this ridiculous concept of a vampire ballerina, and they're really taking their time and trying to make a well-done movie with interesting characters in it. Mm-hmm. But because of what from the preview, if you're just, I was invested. And I'm not saying that like, well, I get it and you guys don't. I don't mean that at all. I was invested, but I can see, just kind of like you said, some people just go to a movie. Hey, I don't get to do this very often. And I could see them sitting there going, hey, come on, let's go. Like, I want to see this girl rip somebody's head off, and being bored. And it's hurting the movie that they made, because they made a really good movie.
Yeah.
And so that trailer just did that movie a huge disservice. And I'm honestly kind of shocked that it was just that just happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, am I just ranting, or is this making sense?
No, you are 100% accurate. And actually, on the Big Picture, podcast we reference often, Sean Fennessy actually was explaining that this movie, he goes, there's 2 potential worlds for this movie.
Yeah.
There's the world where the preview doesn't exist and people go in and there's a mystery to it, and and then there's a big reveal, which is really the way the movie plays out, because it does spend a long time.
It spends a long time.
Characters not knowing, and when it really kills the effect.
It kills it completely.
And I think the movie would have had a much greater impact if people didn't know.
Can you imagine sitting in that theater, like I saw it on a Friday night, pretty good crowd, and all of a sudden this girl's a vampire?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the reaction?
That would have been
a great moment. That would have been a great moment.
It would have been. And then of course you said, and then the other world for this movie is the world that we have, which is when you see the preview, you've essentially seen
the
all
movie.
The beats of the movie. And I go back to this. I go, yes, it makes me angry. It makes me angry that I couldn't have had the opportunity to have experienced it in the other scenario, where I go in not knowing and my mind's blown. Yeah. And it's like, what a fun choice, because the premise is amazing.
It would have been it's a great premise no matter what. And then all of a sudden she's a vampire ripping people's heads off.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like that twist of like, oh, the people who thought they were the perpetrators are actually the victims.
That's always going to work. That's fun.
Fantastic. What I do feel a little bit for the movie company here is, how hard would it have been to market this movie without giving that away? And I'm not trying to say they should have. I'm just saying,
I know.
My fear is, if they would have marketed it the way I would have wanted it to be marketed, probably nobody goes to see this movie.
And because unfortunately, this movie's also not. I think it's going to turn out to be a little bit of a hit, but it's not setting the world on fire.
Yeah,
it opened to like $10 million.
Yep. So it's a $28 million budget. It's made 15 million in the US so far, 19, basically almost 20 worldwide.
Yeah.
So if it just sort of has a steady run, but again, I think they thought the only way we're going to get people to see this movie is we got to tell, like, it's got to have that line. We cannot have a
ballerina vampire. And I know, but
even not even the preview, the poster gives away
it does
the movie, and I like the poster after having seen it, but like, just leave some mystery in your movie, and
leave some, like, let the audience be able to think for themselves and decide for themselves. Like, I think it was maybe on the big picture, maybe in Chris Ryan, that was like, what if the poster was just this girl on the bed, not revealed to be a vampire, shackled up, and it was like the tagline was like, they kidnapped the wrong girl.
Yeah.
So you're going, oh man, what, like, is she
that would have been
like perfect. An assassin? Is she what is she?
Well, and then in the movie, when you find out her dad is this crazy villain and there's a hitman that works for him, you'd be going, oh, that's why they kidnapped the wrong girl, because somebody's going to come after them for kidnapping her.
So it's like a twist on a twist.
When it's her, like,
because if you take the trailer completely out of the equation, I had such admiration for the way they took their time with the story, and they really played with the wait, like, is she doing this? Is she not doing this? Then they start to turn on each other, and a lot of, then the finger pointing starts, and so it's like, this is good stuff. And everyone's getting more amped up, and they're playing the blame game, and they're starting to turn on each other. So that alone is a good story. Mm-hmm. Group of criminals stuck in a mansion. It started out like, hey, let's just do this and we'll be rich. But then it turns into, well, I don't trust you, and alliances. It's like, this is a good story. Mm-hmm. And then you hit everyone with the vampire aspect. I would have had a smile on my face so big if I didn't know everything. And then to take it a step further, okay, if you have to live in a world where they have to reveal that she's a vampire, I'm still frustrated. Because like I said, the trailer spells, it outlines the entire movie for you. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't know exactly, it's not like, at minute 37, she's going to become a vampire. But like I said, you know when, you know how, and you know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. They literally show you the exact scene where Catherine Newton's going, guys. And then she leans up, and it's like, do you have to give that away?
Right.
Like, so, okay, you're giving too much away to begin with, but then you're taking it even further, and you're giving specific scenes away. Mm. It really got under my skin, and I really think trailers need to, I don't know if it's a studio thing or what, but I think it needs to be changed.
I'm 100% with you, and my fear is just, this is all evidence of the fact that movies just haven't been doing the business they used to do.
Yeah.
And I think
so they have to throw everything at the wall.
We all knew this. It was a classic trick that movies would do for movies that weren't good, is they'd put all their best bits in the preview to try to get people to go. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, that was exactly what I'm saying. It was a quirk that people were aware of, like, oh, they put all the best stuff in the
just to get us into the theater.
And now even good movies are doing that to try to get people to the theater. And
it's so unfortunate, because this movie had so much more to offer besides just the big stuff.
Yeah. And I'll, not to get ahead of myself, the next movie that I was going to talk about just a little bit, I didn't want to spend too much time on, is Challengers. Mm-hmm. Challengers actually fits this mold exactly the same way. Challengers gives away, like, the whole beat, every beat of that movie in the preview. In fact, when I was done watching it, I was like, yeah, I basically had already seen this in the preview, and nothing really in the movie itself did anything to expound upon or elaborate on this whole idea of what the preview already laid out for us.
I did not like the Challengers at all.
So you did see it?
I did see it.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I kept my mouth shut because you surprised me with Late Night with the Devil, but yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But so rant over, loved Abigail.
Yes.
I just am frustrated at what the experience could have been like. We're seeing a lot of really good under 18, let's say, performances this year. And I'm going to include the girl, Abigail.
Yes.
I thought she was great in this movie.
That's, in my review, I said she was the real winner of, like, I thought everybody did well.
I did too.
But I thought she was the one who, like, if I had to give a prize to one of the performers, it's like, you get the trophy.
She did a great job. When they had her locked in that, is it an elevator or something?
Yeah.
And she kind of has to give the exposition, like, your real name is such and such, and you used to be a cop. That could have been like okay, like God bless her, she tried. I thought she did. Her delivery and that stuff was great, and her like she almost had like that cockiness about her. Like she hit all the right notes.
She had to early in the movie before the reveal. She has to come across as a normal girl who's freaked out in this situation.
Nailed it.
And then she's got to be the vampire, which is
nailed it.
Oh, and then in that scene, it's like, yeah, I look like a little girl, but I'm actually really old, and so like I'm a very wise, cunning person.
She had a lot of layers to her.
And she pulls off all of them.
She pulls it all off. Great, again, ruined by the trailer. Great line delivery where she's talking to the Melissa Burke. I'm sorry for everything that's going to happen to you. Yeah. Like, boom. She just nailed that. Yeah. Like, kudos to her. She did a great job. And like I said, Radio Silence, that's the team, the writing, directing team. They're doing great stuff, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
They're just making really good, enjoyable movies. They like their blood, they like their gore, but it's not all that it is.
Yeah.
So big win, just such a frustration on my part from the trailer.
Yeah. And it was actually, they did something I said that movies don't do anymore, which I really appreciated, was the 6 characters in the house were all like good archetype, stereotype characters. Mm-hmm. And I was like, movies are afraid to do that, but they did a really good job. Like
the stoner,
even when they go through, like it's kind of exposition, like background, but which is a decently well done scene. But it's like, like all these characters are like the archetypes we're familiar with.
Yeah,
and it makes it easy to follow. Okay, I know what that character is.
I get them,
and they were cast very well. They were, like everything fit very perfectly.
And just a couple of shout outs. the girl dancing with headless Angus McCloud, is that right?
I think so.
I think the actor, like Radio Silence is doing. They nail like the kind of the dark comedy really well. And then when Catherine Newton does become a vampire, Abigail dancing, and then like they're like kind of linked together.
Yeah,
and the way they cut back and forth to that, it was like, man, these guys are just having fun, but they're doing good creative stuff.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Kevin Durand, who is the big, like he's the muscle, but he's also always kind of dumb. He
that could have been such a stupid character.
He is so good at that.
He's so good
at that. Just real, again, stereotypical archetype villain henchman character. He's so good at it.
And like we always talk about on here, I'm not saying that every movie has to have De Niro like character development and acting, but when you just if you just care enough to give a little attention to these characters, it goes such a long way. Mm-hmm. And just they did. No one in this movie is obviously going to, win an award. It's never even going to be a conversation. But everyone committed to their part, and they did a really good job.
Yeah.
So really, really fun experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Stupid trailer.
Yeah. So if you haven't figured it out by now, we recommend go see the movie, and if you can, avoid the trailer. It makes me actually envy friends who are just completely out of the movie world.
I know.
Who I could possibly show this to, and they'd be like, I've never heard of it, and they would have no idea what they're getting into.
Yep.
I envy the experience that they could have for that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Challengers. Yeah.
that was not a good movie.
Yeah. So Challengers, again, I think we probably both went to see it for the same reason. It's just that it's sort of a big event, and in the movie world, it's supposed to be a big deal. Zendaya is supposed to be one of our biggest stars. Right. And this is like, I don't know, an important movie for her, I guess. The 2 guys, Mike Faced and Josh O'Connor, I think that's their names.
I think so.
They're kind of up and comers, I guess. I watch this movie and I go, okay, what was the point?
Yeah.
So, the point was obviously like the team behind the movie. I don't know if it was the guy who directed it, also wrote it, or somebody else did. I can't remember. I didn't really look that up. Either. But they were like, we just want a really stylish, melodramatic 3-way romance story.
Yeah.
And what actually really bums me out about it is that I think there could have actually been a really compelling story in there about these 2 tennis guys and their like different approaches to life and tennis, and the way that those diverge, particularly because of this girl who comes between them. But man, the movie was not really interested in that.
Not at all.
It was more.
I don't know what the movie was interested in. Because it's let's just be frank, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. It's marketed as almost like a trying to think of the least creepy way to say that. You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of trying not to be creepy, but you know what? Everything about this movie was just trying to be really sexy. That's what it was all about. And like,
they would go so far with it, and then it's like, oh, we're not. And I'm not saying they should have gone there, but why did you market the movie like that?
Yeah, it was. And while I'm sitting there going like, I think there's scenes in this movie that are meant to be like very sexy that like I would never think. Like, there's a lot of sweating.
There's a lot of sweating.
And I'm like, is this part of like their idea of like what's very sexy? Like like all of this sweating? Because all I'm going is like, can you please stop zooming in on their like dripping sweat?
Yeah,
it's gross.
And I was just gonna say too, like I championed Zendaya when we did Dune 2, and I stand by that. I do think she's a star. It is time for her to play something other than grumpy and grouchy and hard bitten by the world.
Yeah.
Yes, Zendaya, you do that. You do that really well. If like usually I would be like, someone needs to move away from the romantic comedy. I actually think she needs to do one and like show a likable, just happy side of yourself.
I saw just like a picture of her at an event, and she just had this great smile, and I was like, hey, look at that. She kind of looks charming when she looks happy.
And I had no idea. I know. Maybe part of the reason I like her is because she actually got her start on this ridiculous show on Disney called KC Undercover. And my kids used to watch it. And, it was made for kids. But she was it was like, man, whoever this is, she's good. And like, she's higher than this material. And so maybe that's part of it. But that was, it was a silly Disney show when she wasn't afraid at that time in her life to be goofy and funny. And it's like, man, you really lost that.
This movie really felt like she's done so much between that Disney show and now.
Yeah.
But it felt like the type of movie that like Disney stars used to do when they were like, I'm trying to step out of my Disney
I'm
image.
not the Disney kid anymore. Yeah,
this movie's much racier.
But that's what I'm saying though. And yes, but no, because they never really, I don't know. I don't want to end up making myself sound like a weirdo. I'm not saying it should have been filled with, graphic sex and nudity and stuff, but
there was definitely like moments that were like, I'm uncomfortable in this scene and what they're doing, like for sure. And then, but yeah, the ending to me was so bad.
One of the
we're getting into spoilers, everybody. Be forewarned. I'm going to spoil the heck out of this thing. But listen, I don't even know if there's anything to spoil because I'm watching, going like that. They're not making any choice on this ending.
That ending was terrible.
The length of time they were drawing things out.
Oh my gosh.
The slow-mo, the build-up. I was literally laughing in my chair. I felt bad because I was like, I never want to be a bad audience member in a movie theater. And I was like, I don't want the people around me to be like, why is this dude chuckling? This is not a funny moment, except for that it was hilarious to me. That I'm going, they really thought they were going to have me at this point, that I was going to be sucked in and be like, oh my goodness,
edge of your seat.
What's happening? What's he going to do?
And instead
I'm like,
let's go.
I'm like, yeah, I do not care. I literally don't even care who wins this match.
I could have cared less.
And then the final moment, the build up, all of this back and forth that leads to,
it was bad.
What? One guy jumps over to spike the ball with the racket. The other guy's underneath him, and they both just drop the rackets, and he catches them. And then Zendaya jumps up and says, "Come on!" And it ends. I'm like,
what? I know.
It's one of those endings that I think is supposed to make you go, oh, and reframe the whole movie of what we were seeing. I'm gonna guess that they would say, oh, the whole movie was about how these two were, they were soulmates, basically, these two tennis guys, and they let the girl come between them, and she didn't want to be a homewrecker. And in the end, like, they came back together, and the let's go she did was what she did when she won a match, and it was basically her saying,
but
I did it. But it's like, no, that didn't actually land at all. Instead, what it looked like was you guys wanted to make the cheesiest, stupid ending that doesn't make any sense, and now it's reframed. The whole thing is, oh, you guys really had nothing here, did you?
You had nothing.
Yeah.
So it was like, I don't know, just embrace, and Zendaya will shout, and then boom, movie over. That was one of the all-time like worst last, 5, 10, whatever minutes. Felt like an hour of a movie ever.
Oh, for sure. And it definitely makes me think of, again, on the rewatchables, they have a category that's like what happened the next day, or like I would love to know what happened the next 5 minutes. Like, okay, he catches them, and then everybody else watching the tennis challenge there is like,
are you going to finish the
somebody
match?
Got a point, I guess. Is the match over? Like, what's happening?
Or it's like the crowd just starts booing and throwing stuff. Like, that's what I wanted to do. That was so stupid. And it was like, I already knew, I was like, man, this is not a good movie. And then that ending just took it to that next level in the worst possible way. It was like, oh, this is, honestly, I was almost like I was almost uncomfortable just because it was so like, not like fidgety almost. I was like, just in this movie. And like, same as you, where I was like, I had the exact same thought you did, where it's like, man, they really think this is supposed to be like some big thing. And it was like the awkwardness of it's failing miserably. It was really bad.
Yeah.
I never want to watch 1 second of this movie again.
No. The couple things I will say on its behalf, I do think pretty well acted. I don't think any of the people who acted in it are going to come out harmed from it. It's not like Dakota Johnson.
Oh, no. It's, let's be clear. It's not a Dakota Johnson situation. Yeah. No.
It was actually well filmed.
Yeah, it looks good. It was just good.
And
the score.
Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor did the score together.
I know you were interested in that.
But I will also say it was weird at times. Like, and they did really weird, like it popping in and out at times. And I was like, even that started making me laugh, where it was like it would be out of it and then a dramatic moment, and then we pop right back into this like dance groove, like club music for the tennis match. It's like, boy, you're whipping me back and forth with.
And I know the whole thing was like the director told them like, score this as something. What was it? It was
like something you could dance to.
Like, okay, that's a fine idea, but it doesn't fit the movie.
No,
like just because it's a clever idea doesn't mean it fits within this movie.
And that's when I heard that. My first thought was, oh, like maybe this movie is going to be really propulsive, and it is not. It is not. It is a slog. And so, that movie, the music, like I said, it's jarring sometimes.
It is, and it just doesn't line up with the movie. This was just a complete miss to me.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what it's going to do box office wise.
It opened throughout its run. It opened to 15 million. I did see that, and I'm like, they ought to be lucky that it opened to 15. They ought to consider themselves lucky, because it's another one where, obviously it has nothing in common with like a Rebel Moon, but you go, who is this movie for?
Young people.
I was going to say, like, not me. That's for sure.
Well, and that's, the other.
But is this a movie that's on a young person's radar?
I don't know.
Like, I have an 18-year-old. I've never heard her say I have an 18-year-old who's a movie fan. I've never heard her say one word about this movie.
Yeah, I'm just mainly curious because it seems like young people, when they're fans of somebody, they are like fans of somebody. And like, it's the Taylor Swift thing of like Taylor Swift fans will do whatever she's in just to support Taylor Swift. And I wondered if Zendaya would be like that. If Zendaya fans are just going to like flood theaters and be like, we've got to support our girls.
And maybe because people do love her.
Yeah, because that's so out of my radar,
But I just cannot imagine this movie having any kind of long legs.
But it also goes back to what I was saying right from the beginning of this episode is this is a movie that I imagine in its original conception, they thought this is going to be a tentpole summer movie, and they put it out right at the end of April. It showed kind of a lack of confidence. Yeah. Like, not June, July. We'll put it right at the end of April.
The end of April.
Right in that, like, the border of our movies we really believe in.
Yeah, this was just not a good movie. No. And like you said, it's not Dakota Johnson level acting. I don't really fault the actors.
No.
It's the story.
Yeah, the story.
And that ending, just an all-time bad ending. Yeah.
And telling the story in a non-linear fashion didn't do anything to assist it.
Nothing here. No. Nothing. No.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we're on the same page. Not that I thought I'd watch that movie and be like, well, Andy might really like it, but it was just, I don't know.
When you see something you really don't like, it's fun to talk about it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Whew. All right, I'm going to mention 2 more movies, and I'm going to be very brief about these because we don't need to spend a lot of time. One is Boy Kills World.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I thought just looked like a really fun idea because it's just crazy action comedy where the action hero is deaf and mute, and so the voice that he narrates through in his head is H. John Benjamin's voice, and he's got like the greatest voice. He voices Archer and Bob's Burgers, and the main character is Bill Skarsgård, who people know as Pennywise from It, and he looks great in the part. Like, he got jacked. And the movie was, you know what? It was exactly what you would expect from this movie. Not a great story, not great character development, really over the top, fun in moments, and I was like, this movie's its legacy is gonna be, there'll be a couple of good like 1-2 minute clips that live on YouTube Reels or Instagram Reels and YouTube.
Yeah.
And people are going to watch and be like, oh, yeah, that was really fun. But the whole movie is just not going to be worth.
No. And it bombed hard.
Yeah.
I think it opened to like $2 million.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, or maybe it was like 1 point. It bombed bad.
I think the most interesting thing about this movie to me, just as a movie fan, looking at the big picture, is that Bill Skarsgård is doing this and The Crow within, several months of each other. And they're definitely tonally complete opposites. And that this one's like a very colorful, bright,
and
humorous.
Crow is all about
all dark, but they're both revenge movies in which he is the action hero.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me that he's like, let's do the really bright, colorful, crazy one, and then let's do the really dark, broody, gritty one.
Yeah.
The other movie I wanted to mention, this one's a cheat. It's not even an April movie. It came out in March, but I saw it in the month of April, and that's Cabrini. Mm-hmm. This one's only notable because it's the same studio who did Sound of Freedom last year. I actually never saw Sound of Freedom. It's one I just kept meaning to see because as a movie person, it was very successful. I heard it was good, but I just
it's a tough way to spend.
I can never get past. I don't like Jim Caviezel's acting.
Yeah,
like it is the most wooden acting, and I can't handle it. So I there's several times I was about to click to watch it, and it's like no, I can't watch Jim Caviezel right now. So this is their follow up.
Yeah,
and this one did not like Sound of Freedom, huge box office success.
Made a huge impact. Yeah,
this one they had a $34 million budget, and worldwide it's grossed $20 million. So it's been a
losing money,
big time, loss. And again, did not see Sound of Freedom. I liked Cabrini. I liked this movie. I thought it was a good story. Yeah. It was a story I was like, it was the type of story that you watch. It's based on a true story, and you go, how have I never heard of this person?
Yeah,
like, that's interesting. That like it's she's like a Mother Teresa-esque character basically, who I've never heard of, and she's in American history. And so I thought it was well acted, well made. Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Not a great movie by any means, but like a good movie.
There you go.
It kind of falls right in line with like One Life that I watched earlier this year with Anthony Hopkins. It's kind of like a movie like that.
Yeah.
Just a good, based on a true story, kind of feel good, someone doing good in the world.
Yeah. And it's like we've said on here before, there's a lot of room in the world for good movies.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to be a 4-star masterpiece. We need good movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the last of the movies that I saw in April. I don't know if you have any additional ones
The only one I saw, certainly not a new movie, but I did see it just Friday night, was Alien.
I saw you went to see that.
The original Alien. I was
going to leave a little window for you to talk about that.
Well, first of all, just what a win this year for old movies playing in the theaters. And maybe that only appeals to the nerdiest of the nerds, but you and I saw Terminator 2 together. We had a blast. I saw The Godfather a couple weeks ago. I was glued to the screen like was watching it for the first time. I hadn't seen Alien from start to finish in years.
Yeah, it's probably been like almost 20 years for me.
I bet it was the same for me. Maybe 15, 20 years. I went to it this time. It's got the reputation now of a classic, 4-star classic, important, historical, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I'm going to watch it with a little bit of a critical eye this time. And I watched it, and I walked away, and I go, you know what? It deserves it. It holds up so well. It goes back to something we've spent a lot of time talking about, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but there was just something so magical about the time, in the time when movies couldn't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
When movies had to work within some kind of like a confine of some kind. Confine? Yeah. When they have to, when they can't when the sky is not the limit, that's when creativity thrives.
Yes.
And, it's so hard now, because 1979, it's the 45th anniversary of the movie. But you go back and you watch it and you go, my gosh, like the creativity, the sets, the set design, it looks amazing. There was never a point. I mean, when it's showing some like the ships in space, that's a little rough, but nothing like nobody's like, nobody's laughing or chuckling. And it's like, man, the amount of creativity that they had to put into this movie is just unbelievable. And that was, my takeaways. Sigourney Weaver is just so good in that movie. And, these older movies, you go back and you watch it. And I think one of the most charming things about these older movies is they were not these perfectly neat, tidy, efficient movies. Like you watch like Avengers Endgame, which is a movie I love, but it is so like neat and tidy, and everything, every word spoken, every prop, everything is so thought out and considered and rehearsed and tested, and they're making that movie to make sure everybody loves it. Mm-hmm. These older movies had such a great feel of like, you know what? I'm just going to turn on the camera and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's not literally like improvisation is not literally like the director didn't know what was happening. He was filming, improvisation usually comes through rehearsals, but they just did such a cool thing back in those days where it was like the director would be like, you guys, I want you guys to be in character, spend time together off camera, but be in character. And then that's how we're going to form some of our dialogue. So it just has that natural feel where it's not, I speak, then you speak, like they're talking over each other. And they do that a lot in Alien. And so by the time the alien shows up, you've spent time with these people who feel like real people, even though they're in outer space, through, just through that willingness to be a little more loose and relaxed. And some of the dialogue, you're like, what? Like, I don't even know. Like, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. That was kind of a weird line, but it makes it feel more natural.
Yeah.
And those older movies did such a good job of that. And that's something I kind of miss.
Yeah. Makes me regret. I strongly considered going to see Alien. So I went and saw Challengers and Boy Kills World on Saturday. I did like a afternoon double feature. And I looked at it and I was like, I could go catch Aliens.
Yeah.
Or Alien. I should be very clear.
It's
because
very,
very
different
distinct movies. I can go catch Alien at the late showing. But I was like, I've been in the theater too long today. I want to go.
I get it.
But I left going like, I'm going to regret this because these movies that come back, the sad thing about them is they don't play for a long time. They just play on select nights.
So this one actually has got a little bit of legs to it. It's playing still this week. And
okay, so maybe I'll still have a chance.
And if you do, maybe we can revisit it a little bit because it was a great experience. It looked great up on the screens. Sigourney Weaver is great. The chest burster scene still holds up after all these years, knowing exactly what's going to happen. I've officially just become the guy who is very willing to say they just don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah.
And they would never. I can't wait to see this new Alien movie to see if it, leans more into this kind of stuff. The last like 10, 15 minutes of this movie is Sigourney Weaver. Basically, she's by herself, just trying to get off of the ship. You barely see the alien.
Yeah.
And then when you do, the twist is like the alien she gets on like the escape pod. The alien's on there with her, but it doesn't turn into like this big special effects fight between Sigourney Weaver and the alien.
Yeah.
She catches it. She finds it kind of tucked away in a corner, and she like sneaks back and then puts on this suit and blows it out of the airlock. They would never make a movie with a finale like that now.
Right.
It's slow. It relies on suspense, not gore or horror not horror, gore or special effects.
Right.
And they just kind of let it play out. I was like, boy, they sure wouldn't make it like this anymore.
Yeah. It's the pacing that we talk about too all the time because it is more of a horror movie than any of the Alien movies that follow. Of course,
correct.
Aliens, kind of famously shifted to more actiony. Yep. And then all the Alien movies since then are more, I don't even know what you would call them.
Dumb.
Yeah.
They're bad.
But like you said, because they can make the xenomorphs, the alien bad guys, do everything, they show them all the time and they're moving. And it's, as you're saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
Like in Jaws, where we can't show the shark, so we build the tension. They couldn't have the alien do everything, so they had to build tension of like just people like being in creepy, dark tunnels and like knowing something could be around the corner, and they built up that tension really well.
Really, really well. And I mean, Alien, you go back and read after you see something. Alien, they literally pitched Alien as Jaws in space. That was the pitch. Yeah. And it's like Jaws plus Halloween equals, plus outer space equals Alien.
Yeah.
That's how I took it. And it was just a super enjoyable experience for me.
I'm really glad you got to have that experience. Maybe I'll get to have it.
I hope so, yeah.
See if it works out for me. So, looking forward to May, as we said. April sort of like the...
Now it's go time.
May is go time. Now, we've got 3 of the movies I'm most looking forward to coming up in May. May 3rd, next week.
Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy. And I think we're both planning on seeing that, so maybe that will be our episode for next week.
I'm seeing it Thursday night.
There you go. We'll see it, and we'll talk about the Fall Guy next week. The following week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
I know you're really excited
I'm really excited about, and I'm hoping we'll just do another episode on that one. The 24th, so a 2-week gap between that.
Oh, yeah.
Furiosa. So like there's three movies that
Big
I think
ones.
are worth their own episode.
Oh, I think
in
so
this
too.
month. And then between there, it's kind of a down week. I think If comes out. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Which I'll probably see.
I'm probably gonna see it.
That might be the week where we do like our 99 movies episode.
Maybe we can just throw in a few thoughts about If.
Just a few things. So I love the lineup. Looking forward to this next month. I'm like, what an exciting movie
Great
month.
lineup.
Next month.
I hope we can come back and have loved all three of those movies.
My one extra note, and I would have never noticed this, and we're doing a lot of referencing the Big Picture podcast, but I hadn't thought about this until Sean Finney pointed this out on that podcast, that this is the first year in a long time we don't have a big Marvel movie coming out in May. Like that's been the domain of Marvel's going to own May with some big release they have, and they got
Nothing.
movie coming out.
Nothing.
And so
they've only got one more movie for this whole year, which is Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this slate going like, I'm not like, oh man, I'm missing the Marvel movie because there's big other movies. Yeah. And so I just didn't even think about it, but I was like, it's
a really good point. Well, it shines more of a spotlight on like a Furiosa or something without having, Iron Man in the way. So
yeah, well, so
it's pretty exciting. I'm excited for all these movies.
Some exciting things to come for sure. And as always, I want to encourage people, if you're willing to give us some feedback, if you saw any of these April movies or any other ones, let us know what you thought about them. If you see The Fall Guy next weekend before we record on Sunday,
let us know.
Give us your thoughts. We'll share your thoughts on here on the podcast because we love to hear back from people who participate with us.
It was an interesting month of movie watching.
We say this all the time. We do it for you guys.
We do.
It's okay. We do it for us, but also for you guys.
But you guys too. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys next week.
Next week.